would be kind of fun to show you some of my artwork. So I thought it would be a fun little video to just get on camera so you guys can kind of get to know me a little bit better. If you didn't know, I really love painting and doing artwork of all types. I like to sing, I like to paint, I love arts and crafts, and I also really enjoy doing ASMR artistry. So anything that I can do to kind of just express how I'm feeling, I think is a lot of fun, because sometimes for me personally, I struggle to express myself more verbally. So being able to do so through my artwork really helps me to be able to, I don't know, just kind of express myself. And this is a watercolor painting that I painted probably over 10 years ago now at this point, but this is a watercolor painting, and we just painted this while I was in high school. And whenever I was in high school, I had the best art teacher. His name was Mr. Williams, and I really loved having him for an art teacher, because I knew that he believed in me, and he would always try to persuade me to go to art school. But they call it the starving artist for a reason. People don't really make, especially artists, don't really make, decent livings from their artwork until they pass away. That's what they say. Their artwork typically does not become valuable until they are in the ground, unfortunately. So, or at least that's what they say. And so I kind of got off of the passion of going to art school, and I ended up trying a different route, and I went to work in the medical field, in the healthcare field, and I ended up working for a doctor for 8 years, and I was doing secretarial work there for her, and it didn't really do a lot for my soul. And although I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to, have a decent paying job with, I guess, an understanding schedule, or a kind of a lenient schedule, I was ready to kind of move on from that position in my life. And yeah, I guess the healthcare field just wasn't really for me. And it's interesting because usually mathematicians and scientists are much, much different than those who are artsy type of people. So I was kind of surrounded by people who had polar opposite personalities than me, which wasn't a bad thing. Actually, I think it was really good for me at the time, because I, learned a lot of life skills experiences by working in the hospital. So let's go ahead and talk more about my paintings. So the types of paintings that I really enjoy doing are watercolor and acrylics. This painting here is a watercolor painting, and I just used a watercolor pad or watercolor paper. You need a special kind of paper to paint watercolor paintings if you want them to turn out more flawlessly, I suppose is a good term to use. And I just remember I was sick on one of the days we all got to go during our class period, an art class. Well, we all got to go downtown where I lived at the time, and we got to walk around and take pictures of all the beautiful Victorian houses and just all of the older houses kind of in the downtown area. And I was ill on that day, but whenever I came back, they had a collection of pictures that I could choose from. And I saw this house, and I just thought it was really gorgeous. And I remember feeling kind of overwhelmed and slightly anxious because I had never painted before with watercolor. And I think it actually turned out pretty decent, for my first watercolor project attempt. And I really loved going to art class because my teacher there, as I was mentioning, we would get together, not he and I, but us as a whole in the class. And I was in, they would call them the IB classes, which means they were just kind of a higher level art class. I really enjoyed doing artwork, and so I took all of the art classes that I could possibly take in high school. In fact, my senior year, a lot of students who were seniors were given the choice to kind of go to this work release program, and they could leave their senior year early at 12 o'clock. But I wanted to stay, although I worked probably 50 hours a week during my senior year of school, but I still did not sign up for the work release program because I really wanted to commit a lot of my time and energy to some of my art classes, and that's just how much I enjoyed spending time working on art. And my teacher was just so amazing. I remember even during my lunch breaks, sometimes I would go to his classroom and I would have lunch in his art room, and I would just be able to kind of work on my art during my lunch break, and it gave me a lot of joy being able to do that. And also, in high school, kids can be kind of cruel, and so it also kind of gave me a chance to, just kind of process some school relationships, or, just whatever I was dealing with as a younger teenage kid. And so how my teacher taught me how to do the artwork. Well, first you just paint on the watercolor sheets, and the way that my art teacher taught us how to do it was you just go from watered down watercolor, so like these areas here that are lighter, like right here, all these lighter areas, my teacher kind of taught us that we do those areas first, and so you go from light to darker in the process of your watercolor paints. And the cool thing about watercolor is once you get like a base coat down right here, this light area right here, you kind of want to let it dry before you start painting over it, because otherwise it will bleed out and kind of cause a sloppy picture. And on the parts that you really want to stand out, like this fence down here and then this shadowed part right here on the house, you can go heavier with the paints, meaning that you don't need to use as much water. And yeah, so, and then the trees were a lot of fun to kind of paint. And there's like a shadow right here down in the foreground. I don't know if you can see it or not, but and it's just kind of a shadow from these trees over here. Here, let's see if you can. But these houses were so beautiful, and I thought this painting had an American flag in it, but I don't see it in my painting. Maybe I didn't include it in the painting, or maybe the house has since then put an American flag up, and I'm just kind of used to seeing it with the American flag. I'm not really sure about that, but and they also have different brushes that you can use for watercolor paintings, and if you use like a more fluffier type of brush, that will kind of be able to get the paint onto larger surface areas like this. And how I did it was I just kind of layered all my paints, and then for the parts that needed more detailing, like the windows and right down here and over here, and then the fence, you just need to kind of use it's a more stiff type of squared brush. But whenever I completed this painting, I will say that whenever I completed this painting, I ended up framing it and gifting it to my parents, and they really were impressed with my artwork. So whenever I was working on my painting, I was kind of shocked at how quickly it is possible to kind of get watercolor paintings complete. I never realized how quick of a painter I was, but I just remember whenever I would complete one project, most of my class was still working on their first project, and so I would oftentimes get to complete, 2 projects. So I definitely do think that I was kind of a more fast-paced artist, especially with paintings, because I took some drawing classes, and although I had to kind of draw this house and map it all out, that gave me kind of a blueprint to work with as far as getting the structure down on paper. However, drawing and shading and all that teeny tiny penmanship and pen work was not ever really my go-to. I found that to be much more complicated. Although I am decent at drawing, painting is more up my alley, and I think it's because I can kind of, with painting, if you mess something up, you can always paint over it. Or with watercolor is different though. With watercolor, if you mess it up, if you go in with a color that is kind of too dark, you can't really paint over it. So that's one thing that you might want to keep in mind. So before going too dark in an area, maybe try building up the color, because if you go too dark and your painting is almost all through, you can't really erase that. Like, I kind of went in a bit too dark right here, but like I said, this was one of my first watercolor paintings. This was my first watercolor project that I had to turn in for a grade, and I think it turned out decent, but I definitely would say, to just be mindful whenever you are working with watercolor, because it's not as forgiving as acrylic paint. Now with acrylic paint, if you need to paint over something that you simply messed up or didn't blend correctly, then you can kind of just go over that acrylic area that you messed up and paint over it and try to salvage any damage that you might have caused due to your, bad technique. Or some days you might be off in your creative thinking field, and I definitely even noticed that at a young age whenever I was taking my art classes. Some days I could just produce so many unique and beautiful art pieces, and I felt really confident about some of those pieces, while other days I kind of felt like maybe my talent or technique was kind of off, and that's okay. You can't let that kind of dictate how you move forward with your projects. So I just would go back in, the next day or two, and with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh attitude about my project, and then you can kind of go uphill from there. And usually everybody in my art class, most of them were all beautiful artists, and all of their projects were so gorgeous. Now, we had to pick themes whenever I was in high school. For example, there was this upperclassman, and I just remember looking up to her because she not only dressed really nice, she had beautiful hair and makeup, and she was everything that I kind of aspired to be, and I just really admired her. Not only her beauty, but she was a beautiful artist, and I remember just admiring all of her artwork. She was such a beautiful artist, and she projects were of trees, and it was so cool because although her collection of artwork was all trees, they all were so uniquely different, every project of hers. So I know also another girl in my art class, she chose the theme of animals, and I thought that was kind of a cute theme looking back. And although these two women have completely different styles of artwork, both of them had such beautiful, beautiful art pieces and produced beautiful collections. I'm trying to remember what my theme was, and I cannot think of it for the life of me. But I have no idea what my theme was. One thing that I have trouble producing is working on people and human figures and stuff like that. That takes a lot of precision, and not that this doesn't take a lot of precision, it's just, for whatever reason, I do best with painting buildings and animals and more structural type of pieces than, let's say, a human face or a baby. Babies are really hard to paint or to draw. They are so difficult. But I have this one girl in my class, and her name was Rachel, and then also another girl named Melissa, and they both were phenomenal drawers. Their shading technique was out of this world, and they could both they could both draw pictures, and it would look exactly like a photograph. So, and that was kind of more their thing, and I thought it was kind of neat. So yeah, that was kind of what their specialty was drawing and shading with pencils or pastels, you name it. Everybody in my art class had such beautiful talent, and I am so happy that I got to experience that time in my life and enjoy just the beauty of artwork. So, there were other people that were really, really good at doing pottery type stuff, so working with clay. I think that also takes a special talent and skill. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and let me know what you think of my artwork. And if you like this video, I'd be happy to show you some more of my art collection. And yeah, I love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Take care.